What's really funny is that people follow this channel and I'm just like, lol, have fun with my inconsistent content. Damn. Talking videos. I wanted to make a talking video yesterday, but I didn't. Well, that's not true. I didn't want to, because if I wanted to, I would have. I didn't want to, but it had occurred to me that I should, because I was doing the thing where I sit here and just think about stuff. But it's almost the end of 2019, and at the beginning of this series I said it's 2019 and I'm 27, and those are two significant things because 27 is 27 and 2019 is the end of the fucking decade. And I mean, I've lived through two end of decades now, but 1999 I really don't remember very well, and decades weren't significant to me, and I wasn't even a decade old yet, so it didn't matter to me. Although it was really cool to watch it go from 1999 to 2000 on the screen of my phone at home. Me and my mom watched it change and we were like, cool, neat. And then it started being like pretty much all the way through the 2000s. If you went to any New Year's party, there was like those glasses that had the O's where the eyes were, with the 2 and the whatever else it was on the other end. We definitely had those for 2000. I also had 2000 like bobby pins, like it just said 2000 on it instead of like a normal bobby pin. Yeah, 2000 was pretty special. But 2009, I find it interesting that it didn't really occur to me that it was like the end of a decade and what that meant. But it does occur to me this year, being older, and I guess like I think about eras and decades like a lot. Like I'm just like super obsessed with history and how we kind of seem to lump things into decades, and I don't know if this was so much of a thing in like the 19th, 18th, and previous centuries, or if this was more of like a 20th century invention, because we always talk about like the 20s, roaring 20s, and like the 30s being the Depression, and the 40s being like basically World War II, but also, I mean, it was only like, yeah, it was basically World War II. The 50s as like the weird Americana time where like a lot of our current kind of ideas about things and the way that the way that we should live life and stuff, like those kind of ideas sprang up in the 50s. The 60s, total change, people trying to like break the ideas that we had just come up with, and they were like, fuck that. And then the 70s was kind of weird because, you know, they were trying to be the 60s, but they were just kind of like, oh man, the 60s got like fucked up at the end, and then everyone started doing coke and listening to disco. And then in the 80s, everyone's like, fuck it, we are going to work and, you know, like try to become as rich as possible, and we're still doing cocaine. And then the 90s, almost harder to classify. It was almost just like, I mean, technology really started to come into play at that point. I mean, it came earlier, but like the internet started, and like a lot of things like that kind of started in the 90s. But you kind of have like an idea of what those decades were like, even though it's not like all of a sudden in 1960 everyone had long hair and peace signs. Like that definitely wasn't a thing like January 1st, 1960. But still, we kind of like think of things in this decade idea, and that's so interesting to me. And so now, because that has become interesting to me in this decade, I am looking back at this decade in that way, and I do feel that it is very significant that it's 2019 and it's going to be the 20s again. And I'm like, wow, it's been the 20s again so many times, but it's almost like more of a thing now. I mean, I don't really know because I wasn't there in the 1920s. Were they like, lol, it's the 20s again, like the 1820s? Like, I don't even know what the 1820s were. Like, I couldn't tell you. Like, the 1800s are all just kind of like sort of lumped together. I mean, I guess like it's like pre-1850 and post-1850-ish. There were some changes, but like Industrial Revolution shit. Yeah, like I don't know if they were thinking that in 1920s, being like, it's the 20s again, whoa. But we are definitely thinking that now because everyone's like, oh, it's like flappers and stuff again. And like we just associate the 20s with this idea of the 1920s. And now we're about to go into the 20s again. But, I mean, are we going to call it the 20s next decade? In like 10 years? Are we going to say like the 20s or like 20s 2.0? Like, I don't even know. But it's more like 20s like 1000.0 or I'm not going to do the math. Someone's going to get mad at me for that.